What's up, nerds? Welcome to RPG Ranked. This is Seth, your second favorite host on this channel, and today we will be ranking all the characters in One Piece Odyssey. I just finished this game semi-recently, and it probably would have been even better, like the story and stuff, if I actually watched the show, but, you know, I don't have time for that. There's like a billion episodes. Anyway, the gameplay was really good, though. There's some great characters. Each of them have some awesome abilities. Mostly quite balanced, but some characters are better than others. None of them are bad. And the game's kind of easy, so you can put whoever you want in your party, whoever you think is, like, cooler. And yeah, so enough skadoodle-oodle-ambling. Let's dive into One Piece Odyssey, all characters ranked. In 9th place, we have Usopp. At the beginning of the game, during Chapter 2 especially, I thought he was going to be one of the best, if not the best character in the game. His main ability that sets him apart from the other characters is that he can attack enemies in other areas without having to move over there. So if there's a guy like weak to speed type, if there's a technique guy who's just chilling over there somewhere random, you can just shoot him instead of having to fight the power guy in your area or anything like that. This is quite useful for the first sections of the game, but by the time you can use Bond move, there's not really any point because you can basically use that as much as you want. The Bond meter recharges so fast. His exploding star ability, the multi-hit one, not the single hit one, why the heck are there two? I don't know, probably some translation error or something, is quite powerful for killing early game enemies. And Usopp Pound and Golden Pound can be quite powerful against those stupid bandits, sailors, and pirates that you fight, especially at NES lobby when he's alone with a useless scrapper Franky. Like, how do you have that many abs and not even be able to do 17 damage? What is wrong with you? But later on in the game, he just becomes less and less useful. He has no abilities that hit everyone on the map, unlike Nami and Franky, the other speed types. And his ultimate skill, Green Star Skull Blast Grass, that's a mouthful. It's not much better than his other group hitting abilities. In addition to these, for the majority of the game, the technique type isn't as common for enemies to have as the other power and speed types, and the stats aren't amazing either. But the nail in the coffin is that you lose him for almost the entirety of Chapter 4, which is one of the two longest chapters in the game. Because of this, he gets behind in levels and just misses out on a large chunk of the game. You can't use him, and that's always a really bad thing. And he's not bad, but I didn't find myself using him nearly as much as the other characters, especially after I got Franky in my party. In second to last place, we have Nami, another speed type this low at the list. That's kind of strange, but she has the lowest attack and defense stats of any character in the game, which makes sense as she's mainly a support character. Her ability Mirage Tempo can be pretty good if you know the enemy is about to use a powerful attack on you, but in most cases it's just better to swap into a stronger character and whack him because, like, enemies don't do that much damage ever in this game. And her thief ability has got to be literally the worst steal command in JRPG history. You can only steal berries, and half the time you get one if you're stealing against a boss. And, like, you steal against enemies, you get like 200. Like, why? The biggest upside that Nami has is how good her Thunderbolt and Thunderlance tempo attacks are in the first few chapters. The former is the first all-targeting skill in the game. You get it like at the beginning of Chapter 2, and it can decimate Black Brothers and Lesser Brothers in Alabasta. Thunderlance tempo is very good in Sewers of Water 7, but most of her other skills aren't that useful. Swing Arm can be good to deal some nice damage against enemies, but just using Usopp or Franky would probably do more damage because her stats are so low. All in all, Nami, she's like Usopp, is pretty good at the start of the game, but she just goes downhill, and by the time I got to the end of the game, I never found myself putting her into my party during battles. In 7th place, we have the dead man himself, Brook. He's the last character to join the party, not joining until the end of Chapter 5, probably about, like, 75% of the way through the game. He only has 5 skills, which when compared to other characters like Zoro, looks like a bottle of water emptied into the ocean. Now that I look at it, his attack stat is quite high, but I never gave him overpowered attack boosting accessories like I did with some of the other party members. I just couldn't rank him any higher than this spot because of how late he joins the party. He does have some exceptional abilities. My personal favorite is New World, which increases the attack stat of all currently active party members. Attack is by far the most important stat in the game. This is very useful and only costs 30 TP. You can use it in all the random battles. You don't have to worry because you attack once and you can use it 4 more times pretty much with the amount of TP you get back. His Ice Elemental attacks, Soul Solid, and Song of Scratch's Blizzard Slice don't do too much damage most of the time, but they have a chance to freeze enemies, which, as I found out too late in the game, is absolutely overpowered. Like, it's a combination between paralysis and poison, and it does like 10,000 damage every turn if you're fighting one of those true challenge guys, and he can't do anything. So yeah, at the beginning of almost every battle in Dressrosa chapter, I put Brook in my party, used New World, and just blew them all up with Luffy, Zoro, and Franky, depending on what type they were. Brook is one of the late game characters that joins the party so late in the game that they can't be amazing, but they aren't. He's a good character, but he doesn't quite compare to the other ones because of how late he joins the party. But actually, no, he's number one because he says, New-wa! Rest in peace, headphone users. In 6th place, we have Robin. She's a pretty average character, but the good kind of average. For most of the game, she only has 4 abilities, but I honestly have no idea how to say this. Cien Fleurs Delphinum can be really helpful for dealing with groups of power enemies. And the absolutely hilarious Those Crap is incredible against those with... I'ma just stop. I don't think I need to explain it any further. Does a lot of damage and paralyzes enemies, though. Her defense stat is surprisingly quite high, and she has good TP. But the reason she's so high, though, heavily depends on her... Oh my gosh, this one's even worse. Milfleur's Gigantesco Mono Stomp ability, learned after the Marineford chapter. This move hits every enemy for a frick ton of damage, and even though it's kind of sketchy looking, it's a really good attack. One of her biggest downsides, like Usopp, is that she leaves the party for all of chapter 2 almost, and she's not particularly strong throughout the first 5 or 6 chapters, but she becomes very powerful at the start of the Dressrosa chapter, and I frequently put her in my party and demolish all the enemies with that weird legs attack. She's a good character, but not one of the best. Breaking into the top 5 is Sanji. He's probably the biggest pervert in any game I've ever played, but his kicks can deal more damage to enemies than Taco Bell does to your digestive system. I thought that his Diablo Jumbo attacks were so epic, and I gave him all my most powerful attack boosting accessories in the beginning of the game. And I tried not to let that influence my ranking of him on the list, though, because I could have done that to any of the characters that would have been just as good. His attack and defense stats are on par with the strongest attackers Luffy, Zoro, and Franky, especially in Water 7. Flambage Chateau and Premier Haché are incredibly powerful attacks, and the latter is probably my favorite of his multi-targeting moves throughout the remainder of the game. But he learns his best single-hit attack before Chapter 8, and it's quite strong. Heck memories, as I like to call it. The reason he's the worst power type character in my opinion, though, is because of his lack of any all-hitting skill in the endgame. While the best characters in the endgame are able to use such attacks because you can wipe out enemies really easily. Against powerful speed-type enemies, though, which most bosses are, Sanji is definitely a character you want to have in your party. The game is very balanced, now that I think of it, as somehow a character as good as Sanji only gets a 5th spot on the ranking. In 4th place, we have another power character, and that is Tony Chopper. He's the only character that can heal, which makes him, well, it's not much of an influence, honestly, as unless you're fighting the challenge bosses, the game's pretty easy, and I didn't find myself healing very often. But, yeah, it's vital against those bosses, and I loved them because they were actually difficult, but that's besides the point. He has the second highest TP stat of all the characters, which makes sense as he is the Doctor. And while his attack isn't particularly high, he can become way strong with Monster Point. He's unable to heal in this mode, but his damage increases immensely. I think it's like double. And once you get Cloven Roseo Palm, which is just absolutely bonkers, man, Monster Point becomes even crazier. Most of his single target attacks aren't that great, except for Cloven Roseo, which can be pretty good at the beginning of the game, and obviously Cloven Roseo Palm, like I mentioned earlier, got up to like 20,000 attack on that move before anyone else got to like not even 10,000. And yeah, like Sanji, his power type allows him to deal major damage to most of the strongest enemies in the game. He's a well-rounded, powerful, and supportive character that is really good to be in your party, but he doesn't have quite the attack stat that the remainder of the characters on this list have, so that's why he only comes in 4. We are now down to the final 3 characters containing the best of each type. We have Zoro. His stats are very good, having slightly lower HP, defense, and guts than Luffy, but having more attack. He has by far the most skills in the game. Some of them are just completely overshadowed by others, but they're all pretty cool. Dragon Twister is amazing in the first 2 chapters, and while 3000 Worlds has better damage, you can upgrade Dragon Twister earlier, and it costs like half the TP. And then you get a bunch of new abilities that are pretty good. and Rashomon, I don't know how to say that right, is probably the best of those. But he doesn't jump back into the greatness of some of the other characters until he learns his final technique. What is this name? The Billionfold World Trichiliakazam. Although this move only hits a group and not everyone, it does have an all-hitter and Black Rope Dragon Twister though. It does so much damage to power enemies. Sadly, a lot of bosses resist his technique-type blows, but there are definitely enough power enemies to make up for it. Zoro is the best of his type because of his high stats, and if you're facing a single power enemy, you will want to put Zoro on the front lines, and you will kick some keister. Second place, we have Luffy. You might be surprised that the bullet-deflecting elastic marine beating up protagonist isn't in first place, but second's still definitely a really good spot, and he's really powerful. He has the best stats of all the characters in the game, and a wide selection of abilities. He has arguably the best type in the game, which is power. Bosses like Crocodile, Rob Lucci, and Doflamingo, like all the major chapter bosses, are all speed type, meaning Luffy's attacks do super effective damage to them. In the earlier sections of the game, Gum Gum Bullet and Gum Gum Gatling are his best abilities, and they're later replaced by Jet Whip and Jet Bazooka. But once you get to the point where all the super extra epic abilities can be used, after chapter 5 I believe, he gets even better. He learns the Conqueror's Haki, which is really good for obliterating speed enemies in Dressrosa, and then later after that chapter, Gum Gum King Kong Gun. That's the weirdest name ever. Actually, no, Zoro's is. But that's just a better version of the Conqueror's Haki. And his best single target attacks are Gum Gum Red Hawk Plus, which you have to go to Marineford and reminisce over your dead brother. That's kind of sad, I don't want to say it, but not really. And Gum Gum King Cobra. These can do so much damage to bosses and send them to you-know-where in the blink of an eye. But there's one thing that Luffy is missing. Ultimate OP attack boosts! Although you don't get Franky until the second half of the game, it more than makes up for it because of his astonishing abilities and above average stats. His TP is very low for how much his skills cost to use. That can be easily fixed by giving a TP cost efficiency accessory, or better yet 2, so that nothing costs TP. And, I mean, those can be good on other characters, but they have enough TP for that, but, you know. And he's still really good without it, because you attack, you get 400 back anyway. It just takes like one less turn to get fully set up. And he has fire-type moves, all-hitting moves, best single target move in the game, and I haven't even mentioned, I mean, it kind of did earlier, the Cola Charge. To put it simply, it doesn't even matter what you're fighting. If you use Max Cola Charge and Franky Iron Boxing, they're going to take a lot of damage. I hit for 55,000 damage once on a speed-type guy that wasn't even weak to him. And nothing, very few things, can withstand a charged-up Franky Radical Beam. Although there aren't as many technique enemies in the earlier game, it's completely irrelevant as Franky doesn't join until later. At that point, there are plenty to make the speed type quite valuable. I literally fell off the couch laughing at how OP Iron Boxing was. Although Brook can buff everyone's attack with New World, his attack boost can't put the other characters above Franky in sheer power. And sheer power is the name of the game in One Piece Odyssey. I don't know how he went from thin as a toothpick and sucky as death to being the most powerful character in the game and the most ripped man on the planet. I mean, he was still ripped before, he just still ripped toothpick. I didn't know that was possible. But he definitely got stronger, and now he's the best character in the game. Thank you all for watching this cringy, nerdy video. If you want more videos, check out our channel. We have lots of stuff on there that's pretty cool if you like RPGs. Check out our website too if you like reading more than watching things, or you want to just like, you're sitting in the library and your mom is going to go find a new cookbook and you can't really watch videos because you forgot your AirPods in the washing machine. Yeah, so you can just check out the articles on there. I got some merch in the description if you want to support our channel. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Or if you're lying in bed at like 2 a.m. on your phone, hopefully your parents don't catch you. And you might be like 40, and then again, that's even worse if your parents catch you. And I will see you all later. Actually, I'll never see you because I'm not a stalker. But peace out, nerds. I talked for way too long in that outro.